Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kay.
Good afternoon. We are getting straight down to it today. This is the new venture, the new way of doing things. Let's just talk shop. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. What are
No
we
weather
talking about?
forecasts, no anything.
Let's get straight into it. What are we talking about today?
Okay, well, one of the things that we have problems with, all of us, is staying calm. It's a huge problem for us all, and unfortunately, in the world we live in, calmness is a expensive commodity, with everything that we have to deal with. And unfortunately, calmness can lead to bad decision making, as well as just doing just silly things, just not making the good decisions. I'm not saying the right decision, I'm talking about good decisions. Because
And viewers and listeners will know at this point that they're going to get to enjoy a couple of anecdotes from us. And that's us making a fool out of ourselves by telling everybody when we've got out of our window of tolerance and we've done some silly things. Hopefully not harmful things, but silly things that others would observe. And we're going to tell you a little bit about how we can maybe avoid getting out of our window of tolerance and some techniques. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some things that you can take away and try yourself. So straight into it, I guess, in terms of some of the times where we have made bad decisions, we haven't stayed calm. There's the infamous brush story.
well,
I
what
mean, John,
happens
would you like to share
firstly?
what that is?
Well, firstly, what we're talking about in terms of not staying calm is making these silly decisions, or just, how many times, Paul, have you found yourself just dropping things because your nerves are frayed, because it's like Home Alone in your kitchen,
It
where
is.
like kids running around, people getting ready for work,
And
and
you
you're just
sort of,
on edge.
uh, uh,
You're on edge. You forget your keys. Your
uh,
keys are in, your
where the,
keys are in the
what?
fridge. Your keys are in the
Yeah.
fridge or in the washing machine, or your car keys, or you can't find your son's underpants, and it's like you're
Or you
running
can't
around.
find your kids. Where are my
You
kids?
can't find anything.
Exactly. All parents and even non-parents, people with dogs, children, demanding friends and lives and colleagues will know that you cannot go left and right at the same time. It's kind of like we try and do that, isn't it? And trying to make decisions when you're in that sort of chaotic state or environment can be very, very tricky. And I think we've experienced at the coalface, haven't we? More than once, as you said earlier, what
Yeah,
the effect of that can be.
and unfortunately, when you've got past that, there's various things that can happen. Your whole day can change because of that morning type of chaos that you have to deal with, that you haven't been able to quantify, or work out, right? Why am I getting cross here? Or why am I getting stressed out? Why am I not staying calm? And we talk about the mantra of calm parents, calm kids. Is if we're not calm, our children aren't calm, and just everything just makes itself. It's like a vicious circle, isn't it? We keep goading each other. But no, some of the biggest problems we have when we are not calm is we make bad decisions. Um, One of the things that we talk about in the book is my fight with the brush. Um, just one of those moments where the day got worse and worse, and all I wanted to do was sweep outside in at home, and this brush that I wanted to put away afterwards just kept coming back out of the garage door, and I just got cross with the brush, and
It
I'm
was
like,
mocking you.
it literally, in the end, it hit me in the face. It was that annoyed with me, and I got that annoyed with that as well. And you could tell me as well about, I'm sure, one or two things that you've done that's,
Several.
well, what's, give me a story. Give me one of your stories where
Well,
you've just not been able to keep calm, and what's happened from it.
we've got the infamous traffic calming incident on my drive where Paul decided to play not traffic police, but more like, I don't know. I've got this vision in my head of the old style policeman stood in the
In
they used to
America.
stand and direct the traffic. Well, I think they still do in some countries, don't they? Possibly Italy, America, not
America
so
do
much
it when
here.
there's problems with the lights, don't they? They have the guy in the
Yeah,
white, the person in the white gloves with the whistle.
I decided
Doing a
due to
dam.
a
Doing a dam.
relatively minor misdemeanor by another motorist. that was good alliteration, led to me really just getting outside of my kind of window of what I could handle. And I jumped out the car and started giving advice as if I was at the driving school, and started instructing the traffic in a safe way. And sort
But
of
were
saying,
you
look, you need to
calm at
go
this
round.
moment?
Not really, no, no. I think reflecting on it afterwards, they probably thought I was a lunatic. I
Yeah.
meant them no harm in that sense, but I'd lost control, and I was trying to regain control. I hadn't made a good decision of actually saying, well, does it really matter here? Does it matter actually that somebody had not realised that, and I was turning left into my drive? It doesn't matter. They didn't do it to wind me up necessarily, but clearly, as usual, like on a morning when you're trying to get things ready for school with kids, as the other example, it's never one thing, is it? It was
No.
never just the brush. There'll have been a series of events that really the brush was kind of, fights with inanimate objects. Listeners and viewers will recognise the brush copped for it. Another motorist got lectured on how to drive. I'm sure they knew full well how to drive. They just made a simple error. And you make a bit of a proud of yourself, unfortunately, with these things. But, you try to think, well, if I was a fly on the wall, how would that have looked? How could I have dealt with that more effectively? How have we learned to deal with that?
So what we're saying is we're thinking it's our thoughts that are affecting our actions.
From me.
Our thoughts as that we're not managing to control. We're not managing to make um, better decisions. So instead of fighting with a brush, I could have quite easily just opened the garage door and picked the brush and placed it down somewhere. But unfortunately, I was already way past that point of window of tolerance into the just red mist. And that had been a build up of lots of different things. Maybe, as I said earlier, dropping a cup on the floor because my nerves were frayed from the kids asking for
Mm.
everything and I couldn't give them everything. So a cup smashed, and to sweep that up, that took 5 minutes, and to make sure that the kids didn't get a shard of cup in their foot, so to get the vacuum out. It all sort of, we've all been there,
And
and
it
then just
compounds, doesn't it?
yeah,
It compounds. But we've learned, you talked about there keeping calm. I think we're both agreed, aren't we, that that is the foundation is just getting back into a state of mind where you can make some rational decisions. Because if you can't even
yeah,
make rational decisions, your chimp's out, as Dr.
yeah.
Steve Peters talks about, and your chimp's running wild. And that's, I mean, without, jokes aside now, that's dangerous. Bad things, worse things than we're describing happen. We're sort of talking about we can laugh about it now moments, but for others it may not be. It can have serious consequences. So just stopping, even pulling over. I pull over now when I've got somebody behind me. At one time, I would have got really irate if somebody was right up my bumper. Pull over, take a deep breath. It all sounds a bit cliche, but it works. The hard thing is doing it, not
Yeah.
not what all these ideas are.
So you've sort of like to make better decisions. How have you done it? How have we done it? Because this is what we're
Yeah.
talking about, isn't it? This is why we've got the podcast. This is why we've got the book, because we're just looking at a problem and we're working and we're explaining to people what have we done to make better decisions. It may resonate with other people, hopefully, that what we've done they can do. So what have you done about it? What have we done?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's just it's staying calm, and sometimes you have to take yourself out of the situation. So you're a big user, and I am now too, of what you call a hard stop. The hard stop can just be take 5 minutes, just leave a situation. Sometimes my partner and I, with the children, or maybe at work, sometimes it's hard in the middle of a meeting if somebody's been you know, very challenging to necessarily leave a meeting. But generally speaking, just like when you're in the car, you can pull over and just get calm, take a deep breath, have a hard stop if you need to, remove yourself from a situation, go into a different physical space. That I think we've both found works really well. And then we can start to think about Can we actually observe our thoughts, see the bigger picture, instead of just, I described my thoughts a few years ago as just being like somebody throwing spaghetti on a plate, just all over the place. It's taking
Well,
control of that.
well, I mean, when we mention the hard stop, it's something. Does it have to be five? I mean, what if you don't have 5 minutes? You might only have 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. But I still think the hard stop has got its place because it's just that switching away from whatever the problem is at the time. I mean, obviously, there are times where you can come away from something and just, use the hard stop a bit more efficiently
Mhm.
by being able to reset and just ask yourself a series of questions as to, for example, why am I being cross? I mean, I give you the famous sort of example about my children with the banana. One children wants a banana. I go into the kitchen, bring back the banana. The other one says, "I want one now." You go and get the banana. You pass that. No, I want it topped up now. You back and forward. It's like the
Yeah,
four candles sort of thing on the two
it
Ronnies. If
is.
it's like back and forward, and your stress builds. And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, I'm going to lose this with my kids. And I think,
Mhm.
I can't. It's only a banana. Why would I want to upset my whole family? So I go back into the kitchen and I just spend 30 seconds asking myself, why am I getting cross? What
Mhm.
is it that's going to be caught? What will happen by me shouting? And by the time I've just asked myself a few questions, I'm a bit calmer about it and I put it in perspective. I've seen the bigger picture.
Exactly. And also, when you see the bigger picture and you can sort of see yourself on that TV screen, you look at yourself and you think, it's only really a banana. Although, as
Mm.
you said, as soon as you cut that banana in half, oh, I don't want to cut it in half. So then you have to learn how to weld the banana together. But that's for a different show. But
That's
jokes
that.
aside,
Yeah.
well, that isn't a
That's a
joke.
magic
But
that's Paul Daniels' magic show. That's a
that's
different show
that
completely.
that's pulling things out of your sleeve, and that's
Yeah.
that's for a different episode. But moving on, yeah, just being able to actually see yourself in that frame and just think it is only work. It is only food. It is only, the severity of it. It's when you're in the moment and you're getting stressed, it seems like the biggest thing in the world. But
Mm,
actually, these can be very, very small things. If there's something consistently, we've talked about this before, if there's something consistently that's causing conflict, that's causing you to be in that situation, well, that's different, I think, isn't it? That's
mm.
something wider that can be addressed. And again, we've talked about that separately. But just being able to have that mental strength, and even if you can't remove yourself, I mean, this is the really good stuff, to be able to just stop and step back a little bit from that. We talk about
Well,
being
are you
present,
talking
but
mentally? You're talking mentally
mentally,
step back. So you can
mentally
be
step
in
back.
your
Yeah.
you can be in your meeting,
Yeah.
but just not talk for 30 seconds and detach
Yeah.
that thought process and think, I'm not in that meeting for 30 seconds. Why am I
Mhm.
feeling like this? You can still ask yourself for your inner dialogue those questions as to what is going on. You could stay in the same room as your kids, but you could just disengage for 30 seconds and just be like, right, don't talk to your kids for 30 seconds. Let me just work out why I'm getting cross. And it's usually not actually anything to do with that. It's to do with something bigger, isn't it, as to
Yeah.
why we are
That's it.
cross.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think, to go back to your question, another thing I've found useful is, this idea of having a kind of mental filing cabinet. We've talked about different sort of metaphors, if you like, to try and explain what is really going on in people's heads. Again, we talk about this a lot more in the book in detail. There are different types of decisions we've talked about on the show before. But just in that moment, just in that thought process, and just being able to triage, if you like, your decisions to be able to see, well, that's, hang on, what do we need to do now? Well, we need to do this thing. What are we thinking about that? Well, if we're having negative thoughts, just decouple that for a moment and just put that to one side, put that in another stream, or put it in another drawer in your filing cabinet.
Mhm.
Maybe part of this is, well, actually, I can't control this. The car's frozen over, or it's raining outside, and I can't find the Wellington boots for the kids. Just accept that. I
Mhm.
can't control the rain. If we're a couple of minutes late for school, we're a couple of minutes late for school.
Yeah, the
Just
world's not
accept
gonna
that.
end, is it? The world's not gonna end, and it's
Exactly.
it's it's trying to put it, like we said, in the bigger picture, and it's putting things in perspective,
Exactly.
and there's something that we we know we have to do in life at the moment.
No.
Really, we know with everything going on that we have to put things in perspective as to really still how lucky we are. And these small fleeting moments of brush fights or traffic wardens, you being a traffic warden for
Yeah.
5 minutes, and or me sort of basically sort of telling, like, or having banana problems in the kitchen, or sort of anything where we've got those split second situations where it's like, this could turn really wrong if I lose my rag here, but it could be a really good outcome if I just think about how to solve this challenge rather than just sort of losing the plot with it all.
And that's the power, isn't it? I think we've learned, which is it's like a switch. Don't do, stop doing, stop talking, stop doing anything for a second and just think.
Yeah.
Just give yourself permission, your brain permission to stop. That's the other thing as well. Where we talk about this in the chapter, The Speed of Life in the book, a lot of this is the sort of, we've constructed these fast paced lives where we're not giving ourselves the chance to do this. In fact, if anything, it's we're driving ourselves into making bad decisions a lot of the time, don't you think?
Yeah, because we're up against the clock all the time,
Exactly.
and we're not allowing ourselves the chance. I was speaking to one of my clients the other day who's about to do some exams, and he stresses about the exams, and I'm like, "What are you stressing about?" And he says, "Well, when I get to the exams, I never get finished, and I panic about what how much time I've got and everything else, and I made some stupid mistakes, really easy ones that I got wrong." And I'm like, "Right, well, why don't you just, when you get in next time, read the whole paper,
Mm.
even though you don't want to, because you think it's wasting time, and calm your thought process down because you then know what to expect."
Yeah.
And
Because
it quite is trying something a bit different there by keeping calm, because he's doing things differently. He's trying to work in a different way.
I think we've all experienced that. You get so overwhelmed, it kind of just consumes you.
Mm,
And then there's no room left for rational thinking. I've certainly had
mhm.
that experience, similar to your client there with, thinking, you're thinking about the thing you've got to do. You're thinking about, I can't do this thing. And they can be very powerful thoughts. But again, you've got to try and step out of that, like we said, see it for what it is and say, well, I've just got to do this, this, and this. So like you
But
said, I'm going to read it first. I'm going to give myself that time.
do you think there's a bit of a link here with something that we haven't really discussed, which is the process of being reactive or proactive when it comes to this as well? Because you
Uh,
spoke about, well, I can't find my wellies and everything else. Is there a situation there where we need to think a bit more proactively about the bigger picture? For example, the night before, thinking, well, the weather's going to be bad tomorrow. Am I proactively thinking about what's needed for tomorrow so that I'm not reacting on the spot and
I think
getting
I think
stressed
there
out?
is. I think there is, and viewers might. We're all striving for that, aren't we? We're all
Mm,
striving for that in our busy lives, and I guess being the cynical, bugger that I am, you think, well, yeah, we do our best, don't we? And you'd agree with that as well. I suppose it's how can we strike a balance between the two, which is actually, yeah, I speak for myself. I'm always trying to be more organised. I think all of us are. There
mm,
are the lucky few in life who seem to really just have everything
yeah.
organised in advance, I pay full respect to those individuals. But for most people, I suppose it's trying to do a bit of proactive and a bit of reactive. Some stuff, those as well, as you've talked about this at length, we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? And then what
Right.
you don't want to do is go into fight or flight.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily, you can't run away, especially when you're trying to look after two kids, to your early example, and you don't want to get into fight mode. So you've got to come up with something a bit more sophisticated. And that's really what we've got to learn, I suppose, as adults, isn't it? That decision making process that we've talked about over the last sort of 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, we just need to probably keep calm in those reactive moments and
Yeah.
make sort of better decisions on the spot, better decisions, because we are calm. Because if we're not
Mm.
calm and we're already in outside the window of tolerance because we haven't tried to question that sort of maybe a 2 minute opportunity to keep things on an even keel and keep the correct type of decisions together, then we are then everything's gonna go wrong, isn't it? It's all gonna break. Everything's gonna go wrong in that moment. So it's making better snap decisions, but also, keep calm and making better decisions maybe over for the next day. So it's like thinking about how your day is gonna go, but that's slightly different,
It,
isn't
it,
it? Than
it is, but I like that term you just used. You've used that before, which is snap decisions. And sometimes snap decisions can be good. Sometimes you
Mhm.
make a decision, right? Let's go to the seaside. Everything's a bit chaotic, but you have a great time.
Yeah,
You can be a bit spur of the moment, but I guess what we're talking about just in a general sense is understanding the difference between those decisions, that they have different sort of timescales, different ways of dealing with them, but just the overarching ability to be able to tell that there are different types of decisions and handle them differently, or triage them, to use my previous word.
yeah,
So I guess, should we round up just by maybe thinking about a couple of different ways that, call it a toolkit, that those watching this can, whether they're busy dads like ourselves or not, what's kind of three things that people can take away from this that they could do, I guess, right now, or
well,
hopefully
well, first
hopefully they won't be in conflict or getting stressed today, but
Well, firstly, it's understanding that you said about the mental filing cabinet in understanding when something is maybe not that important and doesn't need to be done right now, and it's creating a problem for you that you can't do the things that are meant to be done right now, and knowing to file that away maybe for an hour from now. So being able to put things on the shelf or an imaginary shelf or a filing cabinet where something's really stressing you out, but it doesn't need to at that moment in time,
right.
saying, right, let's just think about that a little bit later on. So that's the first one. Second one I'd probably say is this hard stop. Is
Yeah,
even if it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, it's an immediate switch off, disengaging of that point where things are getting on top of you for a certain reason, like the brush, like the police story, like the banana. And just, we've all been there and done all these things. I think the third thing is we mentioned it, which is in the book of traffic light system, where we
mm,
just think about, right, there's a problem. We turn the thing to red. We have a really good think about it. We reflect on it. Then we start to go to amber, which is we're raring to go. We know what we want to do. We've changed our decision making to make it better for that moment in time, and green, off we go, and we do what we were going to do.
yeah, fantastic. Okay, so as ever, stick your if you're listening or watching by various different means in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, how do you do it? Can you try those three things? If you're going to try them, or you have tried them, how did they work for you? Maybe they didn't work. Let's talk about that. Maybe they don't work for everyone. Let's find out. But yeah, thank you as ever for liking, subscribing, listening, watching, etc. Always glad to have your company, and we look forward to seeing you on the next edition.
Bye bye.